Welcome to the Film Geezers podcast. This is our first podcast in what we hope to be a series where we discuss anything and everything to do with films. We say it's made by film lovers for film lovers. I'm Robbo, I'm here with Cheeto.
Hello.
And we thought today's topic we'd discuss our top 10 favourite films. So we've each compiled a list of 10 films. We don't know what's on each other's lists, and we thought we'd just go through and discuss them. They're in no particular order.
And they aren't what we think are the best films of all time. They're just favourite films to us personally. So if you've got a different list, like I said, it's a matter of opinion. It's just our favourite films.
Okay, so do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
So this might be on your list. It may be the 1975 film Jaws.
No, it's not on my list.
No,
actually. No.
Okay. So directed by Steven Spielberg. As I say, it was made in 1975. Stars Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, and Robert Shaw. And it's based on the novel by Peter Benchley. And it's the film's about a great white shark terrorising a seaside community in Amity Island.
Why is it your favourite film of all time?
Well, it's not. I'd say it's not my favourite film. One of my favourite films. It's so difficult to compile a list.
Yeah. Because there's so many great films.
Yeah. I guess it's a film that I can watch over and over again.
Yeah.
And I still love it. It was considered like the first summer blockbuster, made shitloads of money.
It broke the record, didn't it, at the time?
Yeah. And it has a lot of common themes. The suspense. I mean, when it first came out, it was an X-rated, which is equivalent to 18 today, because horror. It's often imitated, so you had a lot of films that came after it. There was one called Orca, which was about a killer whale. Night of the Grizzly, Piranha. It's all about that kind of unstoppable Leviathan, coming after you. And like common themes carried over into like Halloween, Terminator.
Those films could have never happened if it wasn't for that,
And I know if you've ever seen a documentary about the making of, there were lots of problems with a mechanical shark. It's built by Robert Matty, I think, who built Giant Octopus on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and it worked perfectly well back at the studio. But as soon as they put it into the Atlantic Ocean, the salt water, it broke. So it meant for a lot of shots, the shark wasn't actually available, which made Spielberg had to improvise by using the barrels.
Yeah,
and that actually maybe added more suspense, because I think it's scarier having something it's there, but you don't know where it is.
Yeah.
See. It's like if someone's in your house, you know they're in your house, but you can't see them.
Can't exactly see where. Yeah.
And so maybe had the shark been working, the film wouldn't have been as good as it was.
Yeah. It just seemed to fit, like the stars lined. That everything that happens made it into the great movie it is.
Yeah. So that's first on my list.
Okay. I do consider this one of the best films of all time. It's The Dark Knight. It's one of those films where it's in a trilogy, but the sequel tends to be better than the original. Like, you get it with Empire. Some say you can get it with Terminator 2, but it just built on everything that the original did. It's quite different to the other films, as in it just changes the tone up. Obviously it's a Christopher Nolan film. It was written and directed by him. He's one of my favourite directors of all time. It's got Christian Bale in, Morgan Freeman, Aaron Eckhart. Obviously a legendary performance by Heath Ledger. He posthumously won the Oscar for that as well, but he plays the Joker so well. He really went method for this. He unfortunately, some say his passing was due to him being so method. He was on something and he unfortunately overdosed. But yeah, no, he's already built a legacy, and he wasn't that old, sort of thing. A theme with mine, the score by Hans Zimmer is one of the greatest of all time in my opinion. It is a very dark film, even in the sense of the script's very dark, the film's very dark, but actually physically the actual film is dark to look at, you know. It's one of the most well-paced movies ever. You don't really feel like you're watching a film at that point. It's odd to say, but sometimes films can be like a slog, or they can just go by really quick. But no, you're enjoying every single minute of it, you know. The dialogue as well, Christopher Nolan is one of the best, as well as one of the best directors, he's one of the best story writers, and that shows through this film. It's weird to say this, but it's a superhero movie, of course it is, but it's not at the same time, because it doesn't throw it in your face that it's a superhero movie. It's a thriller at the end of the day, and one of the best there is. And just to finish it off, it has one of the greatest first acts of all time with the bank scene. It just puts you right into the film, and you basically know what the film is going to be like from that first act.
Yeah, I think I've only ever seen it once.
Yeah, no,
I'm not a big fan of sort of the modern day superhero films, but I remember when the Michael Keaton Batman came out.
Totally different to that.
Although it was different to the sort of original TV series, it was still a little bit light-hearted.
Yeah.
Whereas I think with the new films by Nolan, it really, you can see why Bruce Wayne is the way he is.
Yeah,
he's a
100%.
twisted, sort of tortured, and obviously that adds to the character, I think.
No, he's very three-dimensional character. That all the, like I said, the story writing, he thinks about his characters, and he gives them a personality instead of them just being blank canvases on the screen, you know. Okay. Right, so what's your second film?
My second film is The Godfather, 1972 crime film directed by Francis Ford Coppola. And he co-wrote the screenplay with Mario Puzo, based on Puzo's novel, and it stars Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, and Robert Duvall. And it follows the it's part of the first instalment of a trilogy, and it covers 1945 to 1955, and it chronicles the Corleone family under Vito Corleone, who's the Godfather. And it really focuses on, the film opens with a wedding of Corleone's daughter, and Michael, who's the youngest son, played by Al Pacino, he turns up at the wedding, and he's kind of an outsider. He doesn't want anything to do with the mafia family. He's actually joined the army, but what happens is that throughout the course of the film, he kind of gets dragged back into it, and eventually takes over what happens, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but there's an assassination attempt on Vito, and while he's laid up in the hospital, Michael kind of takes over, and he eventually takes over the family and the business. And that leads on to, Godfather. Some people would say Godfather Part 2 is actually a better film, because that's split between. It tells the backstory of Vito Corleone, how he came to America from Sicily, how he
two time
periods. Yeah, I think it's in the 20s, and how he got into crime and how he became the Godfather.
Yeah,
and then the second part is shows Michael getting more sort of hold on the family, and getting deeper and deeper into that, into the mafia. It's a fantastic film. It's a great story, but again, it's just one of my personal favourites. I know you haven't seen it.
No, just tell them that.
I'm
going to death threats now.
I urge you to go watch it.
No, well, eventually, it's just, it seems like with these type of films that are in such high regard, that you gotta, it's not like you can just turn it on and watch it like a popcorn film, you know. You gotta get in the right mind space and headspace to actually be able to watch it, you know. But no, eventually, I can't call myself a film simp if I haven't watched it. I will eventually watch them, but Yeah.
What's your next film?
My next film, I don't know if you might have this on your list as well. It's Ridley Scott's Gladiator.
No, I haven't actually. It was a close one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's this is the thing with there's a few directors where you look at them directing the film and you're like, okay, this is going to be a really good film, or it's at least going to be decent. You're going to leave the cinema happy, and Ridley Scott is one of them. You know, he's one of the greatest of all time. Definitely, probably one of the best to come from these shores. Just it's the thing. I really can't pinpoint what makes Gladiator brilliant. It's obviously got a first act of. It's one of the best first acts ever, and like Dark Knight, it sets you up for the film. It gets us straight into it. Like you expect, like a normal film to ease you into it, but no, it's straight action, and then it's got an emotional overtone throughout all of it. You know, it's. Tell you what, I'm not a crier, but I tell you what, it can make the hardest man cry. You know what I mean? I think to the scenes of when he's coming home and his wife and his son are just it's well shot. His wife and his son are just hanging, and you can see him crying, and that's great writing because it brings emotion to him. You know, only up until that we'd seen the macho general side of him, and sometimes if your character is written in a way where you can only see one side, then they can be one-dimensional and boring characters. Where no, this actually it kind of makes a U-turn because you wouldn't expect this from him, but you know, he breaks down, he starts crying, and then after that, it's got some great action scenes, obviously with the Colosseum and stuff, but it's almost like a revenge story, almost, you know, against Joaquin Phoenix's character, Commodus. Yeah. He's gone back to kill him, and only to kill him. He doesn't care what happens to him. You know, he's as far as he's done. His life is done for anyway. He just wants revenge, and I'm not going to tell you how. You know, I encourage you to watch this, but the third act it's not the longest. It's not probably one of the most action packed, but it is one of the most emotional final acts ever, and. It's hard because that's about as much as I can say because I want you all to watch it, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's a brilliant film. Ridley Scott obviously had a background in TV advertising, making adverts for TV, and so all of his films are just beautifully shot.
Yeah, the cinematography is brilliant.
It's almost like a painting, you know, some of the framing of the scenes and everything. So yeah,
and also got to give a shout out to David Franzoni because his writing really comes through in the film. It's natural between the characters. It's how you'd expect them to interact in the real world. Because sometimes writing in movies can seem robotic, but no, this is really free flowing. And yeah, no, you should really watch this film if you haven't seen it already. So, what's your third film?
This may be on your list. The Thing?
No, it's not. No, nearly, because I consider this the best horror film of all time.
Yeah. The Thing is a 1982 horror film. It's set in a polar Antarctic research site. It stars it's directed by John Carpenter, and it's got one of his kind of favourite leading men, Kurt Russell. Features Wilfred Brimley, Keith David, Richard Dysart.
It's a very stacked cast, isn't it?
Donald Moffat, yeah. And it's about, like I say, it's an Antarctic research site. I don't really want to spoil it, but this thing, which is a parasitic extraterrestrial life form that can assimilate other people, finds its way into their outpost. And starts to take over people, and so it's that kind of it's very, because obviously it's set in one kind of location. It's claustrophobic. It's got suspense because you don't know who is the thing and who isn't. And again, it's very well written, well acted, well filmed. Rob Bottin was the special makeup effects designer. And this obviously is pre-CGI, so everything had to be in camera effects as well. And I think that is a film that, again, stands up to the test of time.
Yeah, it is one of the best, like, practical effects of all time, if not the best. You know, you think of CGI, the CGI would actually make it worse than what it was. You know. So,
yeah, I think that's.
No, it's been a lot of people's top tens. It's, like I said, it was very nearly in mine because John Carpenter is the master of horror. You know, but. This leads me on to my third one, which is another John Carpenter film, Halloween. Yeah. This is a film that I just adore. You know, it's a bit weird that you'd adore a guy going around killing babysitters, but to me, it's a lot more than that. It is a masterpiece at the end of the day. What he was trying to go for, it is the most bare bones horror, the most simple idea, and that's why it works. John Carpenter, he done Assault on Precinct 13, and he was like a nothing director. He got brought in on I believe it was a $300,000 budget. They were able to get the services of Donald Pleasance, which was a massive thing. You know, Donald Pleasance being one of the greatest actors to come from these shores. Nick Castle, who was really a nobody, just a friend of John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, the producers as well. He was just, because they had such a low budget, he was just drafted in to play the Shape.
One shot Deborah Hill, actually.
Yeah, there's one shot. Nick Castle was about 6'4", and Deborah Hill was like 5'4" or something, and you can just see the height difference. But like I said, they didn't have the budget. They didn't have the time to be able to make those changes.
So there's one outtake we can see. There's one take in the film where you can see. I think she's hiding behind some trees. You see John Carpenter's smoke coming out the tree. And they couldn't afford to reshoot it because it was.
Yeah, the leaves in the scenes.
Yeah, because they shot in LA, didn't they? And it was supposed to be set in mid-America somewhere.
Yeah, Haddonfield, Illinois.
So didn't they have to paint leaves brown because it's supposed to be in autumn?
They had to chuck them into the scene, gather them all up in a plastic bag, and do the same. Like I said, this was bare bones. It was real, and it was unbelievable that one of the greatest horror films of all time, probably the greatest slasher, and that's another thing. It started the slasher craze of the 80s. You think of Friday the 13th, you think of Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream. They all came from this. Like I said, it is a masterpiece. People think that slashers can't be, but just in suspense alone, what he was going for, you know, it's the fear of the unknown. You know, it's like there's a couple of scenes where they're inside the house, and say Laurie, played by Jamie Lee Curtis in her first role, she could turn a corner and you'd be like, okay, Michael's behind that sofa, or he's behind that wall. You know, he could be anywhere. And a common thing in the Halloween franchise is that he turns very zombie-like, but in this one, it's the best incarnation of Michael, because he is almost supernatural. You know, he almost teleports sometimes. But like I said, it's just really is a marvel of filmmaking. And it just goes to show how great of a director John Carpenter is, that he was able to pull this masterpiece out of nowhere. Originally, it was called The Babysitter Murders, because Akkad Mustafa was the producer, and he wasn't very, very good with films or anything. And then they brought on John Carpenter, and they were surprised that a film was never called Halloween before, so they called it Halloween. And it's certainly a staple of Halloween in our house. So yeah, that's my third film.
Okay, good. Right, so my next film it might be on your list, I don't know. The 1957 film 12 Angry Men.
No, it's not. Great film, man.
Directed by Sidney Lumet. It stars Henry Fonda, Martin Balsam, Lee J. Cobb, Jack Klugman, Edward Binns, Jack Warden, Ed Begley. And it's one of those films that's set in a single location in a jury room. And it's essentially the 12 jurors debating about a case they've just heard. And they have a vote, and the vote is 11-1 guilty, and the only one who's standing out is Henry Fonda. And it's how slowly throughout the film, the more and more they debate it, the more and more of the jurors actually determine that he's not guilty. But it's also it covers each juror's own prejudices. So there's one guy who's particularly prejudiced, racist, because the kid who's accused of murdering his father is a Puerto Rican. There's one guy who wants to get away because he's got tickets to a baseball game. So it's about all these external pressures affect their decision. I'm not going to tell you how it ends. You can probably guess for yourself. But again, it's very claustrophobic. It's set in a hot jury room. You see the jurors sweating. There's heated debate, and obviously it was adapted from a TV play, which would have gone out live. So that's why I think they stuck to the one location. But it's just a great film to watch.
And I think as well, it's when you think of bare bones films, just putting men in a room and to make it one of the greatest films of all time takes something. It takes good writing, as in terms of natural communication between each actor. It's almost a genre of its own with the one setting.
Yeah. But
it is the probably the greatest film of that, isn't it?
But I think also the film happens in real time as well, which makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Makes it feel like it's live. You're there, actually in the room with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. I've only seen it once, but when I did see it, it was a joy to watch. So yeah. My next film is Christopher Nolan's Inception. Like I said, there's a few Christopher Nolan films on my list. I just think just what he does on screen. I love his directing style. I love his writing. Like I said, people forget that he writes his own films, and it's not seen that much anymore. You know what I mean? And he's a world-class writer. But I'm going to keep this one short and sweet, because you do have to see it yourself. I could sit here rambling for 20 minutes, but you still wouldn't get the gist of it. You just have to watch it because it's one of the most mind-bending films of all time.
But I've seen it and it's left me confused as to what was going on.
Yeah, I've had to watch it a couple of times to fully get it. But like I said, it's it may be confusing. You're watching a brilliant film. It took him, I believe, 10 years to write this film. He started writing it before Memento even came out, and he basically, he was in the attitude he was writing a film that he wanted to make like perfect. So that's why it took so long to do it. And once he found that formula, that's what he released. But yeah, it's got a stacked cast. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio, Ellen Page, Tom Hardy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Cillian Murphy. But yeah, like I said, it's about going back in time into people's consciences. But like I said, I can sit here talk for ages, but you just have to watch it. But like I said, you will not be disappointed because it is, in my opinion, one of the greatest films of all time, and it is easy on my top 10.
Yeah, good film, but not on my list.
Like I said, I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I do think he's up there with the greatest directors of all time. But yeah.
Right, my next one, may or may not be on your list. Raiders of the Lost Ark. No. Raiders of the Lost Ark is an action adventure film. It's made in 1981. It's directed by Steven Spielberg. And it's written by Lawrence Kasdan. It's based on a story by George Lucas and Philip Kaufman, and it stars Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, Ronald Lacey, John Rhys Davies, and Denham Elliott. So if I said to you, right, the film is about he's an archaeologist by day, he's an adventurer by night, going around trying to collect all these relics. I mean, that shouldn't make a good film, but it just does.
It does. Like I said, for me personally, it is the best action adventure film ever made, and also, for me as well, it's the first act, the opening scene is the best intro to any film ever in history, because it like I said, it puts you right in, but it's suspenseful, it's mysterious, and it just sets up the film so perfectly. You know what you're getting yourself into.
It's set in the 1930s. It's pre-Second World War, and it details. It's about Hitler's obsession with religious artifacts, and it's about the recovery of the Ark of the Covenant. So there's a little bit of supernatural stuff in there as well, religious stuff. But it's just for an action adventure film, you can't beat it. I mean, Spielberg says that as a kid he used to love to watch the film serials. So like Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and it's kind of like that.
You can see that coming. You can see themes of that coming through.
Yeah. But it's a great, and again, it's one of those films that you can sit down to watch it, and 10 minutes later, it appears like 10 minutes later it's finished.
Oh, 100%.
It did spawn 3 sequels. Temple of Doom, which is probably not the greatest. Last Crusade, which I think is one of my favourites.
Yeah.
And they left it a little while and did Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I think just didn't work. I think it was just too late.
Well, they're bringing out a 5th one with Harrison Ford in, so hopefully they can redeem it. They can go all guns blazing. But yeah, like I said, overall you don't get better than the original, do you? And this, it just encompasses everything about Indiana Jones. Obviously, he's one of the most iconic characters of all time, if not the most iconic character. He is the classic hero. He's the classic protagonist. He's charming. He's courageous. He won't take no for an answer, you know.
But again, he's not a superhero.
He's an everyman. He's a teacher, essentially, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know.
Because originally, I think it was Tom Selleck was actually cast as Indiana Jones, but because of his commitments to Magnum, the TV series, he couldn't do the part, so it's offered to Harrison Ford. And it's one of those where I just can't imagine Tom Selleck in the role. It
is Harrison Ford as well.
Yeah.
You know? But at the same time, though, when you're watching it, you're not watching with some actors. You watch them, but no, you're watching Indiana Jones. You know.
Yeah, no, he's obviously carrying the baggage of Han Solo and that, but no, he's
that doesn't stick through you.
Separate character, definitely.
But like I said, it was so close. It was so close to get my top 10 because that is, like I said, one of my favourite films of all time, and the rewatchability on that as well. But my 4th film is a kind of a mind-bending Christopher Nolan thriller again. Like I said, it's a lot of my films with Chris Nolan. I just love the guy's films and stuff. You know, his directing style. But it is Interstellar. When I first watched this, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. You know, like I knew it was about space and stuff, but I didn't know like what alleys you'd go down. It's one of the films where I actually like Matthew McConaughey in. You know, it was during the reconnaissance one that where you just seem to be in everything. But
reconnaissance,
that's
Renaissance and Matthew.
Yeah, that's what they call it. Yeah, he was.
Is that where he's redeemed himself from?
Yeah, he was in loads of films, obviously. Dallas Buyers Club, he won the Oscar for. You know, he's just everywhere. But it's like I said, that's one thing with Christopher Nolan's films is that they are mind bending, they are memorable. It's not when I first saw like the trailer for it, I thought it was going to be like a non-fiction sort of space film, but no, it totally goes left. And like I said, I don't want to give away too much, but essentially they have to find another planet because the planet's dying. The timing is different on the planets. You know, like an hour on this planet is like 7 years on the last planet.
Well, it's all about wormholes, isn't it?
Yeah, they have to go through this wormhole,
and about how time gets distorted as you travel through a wormhole. So what could be like an hour on Earth will be like 20 years on another planet somewhere. But
obviously Hans Zimmer as well, bringing another brilliant score. You know, it's a very emotional film. There's that one scene with him and Murph when he sees her growing up, and
that's his daughter.
Yeah, it's just pure acting, and it shows the acting ability of Matthew McConaughey. But yeah, like I said, with Hans Zimmer's score, it just makes it that little bit better. And
it's got Michael Caine, isn't it?
Yeah, Michael Caine.
He's a Christopher Nolan fan.
Yeah, he's in basically everything Christopher Nolan, but
John Lithgow. Matt Damon is a sort of small part in it.
Yeah, he gets put into it. You don't quite you expect a big name like Matt Damon to be in it throughout the whole way, but no, he kind of comes in as his little thing, But
what year did it come out?
2014, and I do. Yeah. This thing with modern movies, I do feel like they get a bit looked down on, but I do. Interstellar's one of those. Every now and then you get a film just come through, and it is a modern masterpiece. It really is a masterpiece. Just everything works.
Yeah. Gotta say, I only watched it recently, and I don't know why I put off watching it. I quite like space films to be sort of more factual than fiction, and I didn't know whether I'd enjoy it, and I really did. It was a really good film, so yeah, well worth watching.
Yeah, 100%. Right, so your fifth film?
My next film, it might be on your list. Alien.
No, it's not.
No, okay. Alien is a 1979 science fiction horror film directed by Ridley Scott, and it stars Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Ian Holm, and Yaphet Kotto. And it all takes place again in a single location.
The Nostromo, isn't it?
Yeah, in a spaceship. Starts off, they're like a cargo ship, and they're travelling into deep space, so they have to be frozen because they're travelling for years. And suddenly they're woken up out of their freeze to investigate a planet. So they go down to this planet. They find these pods like eggs. John Hurt's character, he ends up getting this creature stuck to his face. They bring him back on board against protocol. The creature falls off his face. They're sat around having a meal, and I don't really want to spoil it, but it's an integral part of the film. But anyway, what happens is they've happened to have brought on board this alien of the title, and it is quite an aggressive alien, bleeds acid, so it's very difficult to kill, and it's kind of that same theme.
Once again, it is a very bare bones.
Yeah,
it's a very simple concept, but it's one of the most, like you said, claustrophobic films ever. You're there with them. You feel hunted like they are. You feel the emotions they are. They're very well written characters, and once again, whereas it's a Ridley Scott film, it can't be anything but good.
Yeah. And again, it's been often copied, the themes in the film, and it was one of the first films to have a female protagonist in Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver. She's actually the main character in it, and she plays a strong, independent woman. And again, for '79, that was quite a breakthrough.
What I do like as well is the cast is very male dominated, and you think that the final person is going to be, because she's kind of in the background for half of it, and then she really comes into her own when she's like the last one left. She's like third in charge, and then when she's in charge, you're like, okay, no, she's the main character, and she bosses the screen, and like I said, it's a good role model for young girls.
Again, being Ridley Scott's beautifully shot.
Yeah. Used models, I believe, didn't they?
Yeah, again, it was pre-CGI. They having to use models. Techniques probably developed it with Star Wars and that kind of thing. But yeah, definitely a good film on a lot of top 100 lists I've seen.
100%. It's definitely on like top 25 for me, but just misses out. My sixth film, going back to your Raiders, is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Like I said, it was a tussle between them two, and I know Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is, like I said, to me it's my favourite film. I know Raiders is the better film, but for me personally, there's something about it. I'm pretty sure it was the first Indiana Jones film I watched, and it's the one I watched the most. It's obviously once again directed by Steven Spielberg, story by George Lucas. It bases heavily around religion, doesn't it, throughout the whole film?
Well, all the films do. This is the search for the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
In which Indy's dad, played by Sean
Connery,
gets dragged into it because he's an expert on medieval literature, and it's been his passion, hasn't it? Is the whole Holy Grail thing.
Yeah.
So
it's almost it's like a MacGuffin, but it's much more than that. You know,
it's the Nazis searching for these religious artifacts. Again, going into it, you kind of spoil it, but I think Spielberg said that the only one who could play Indiana Jones' father was James Bond.
Yeah,
and I think that's why they went.
That's the thing with Sean Connery. He just has that presence on screen. You know, he is.
But he's actually he's playing against type, isn't he, as well?
Yes,
because his character's quite mild and not really action orientated. He's more of a bookworm.
Like he gets scared when he thinks that Indy breaks the vase, doesn't it? You know, and then he realises it's a crosshatch. You know, but like I said, I think that's what makes it even better, because it does play against the stereotypes, and also it is, among other things, it is a father and son like reconnecting story as well, because it shows in the first act a young Indy played by River Phoenix. He steals the Cross of Coronado from these miners. He takes it back to Henry's house, and his dad is working on the Grail diary, and he makes him speak in Greek, and it's not like a typical father and son interaction, you know, but you learn that they weren't really close. It was more their mother halfway through, and they didn't really have much to talk about, but at the end they almost reconcile and they connect together again. But like I said, it's that theme all throughout, and I just think it's such a blast. You know, it's a really entertaining movie, well paced, and one of the best third acts to a film ever. I love the third act. Like I said, I can't give it away, but you guys have to watch it, because that's the reason why I prefer it to Raiders. It's just such a fun movie. But yeah,
cool.
You're a sick film, sir.
Okay. Right, so my next film is Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
It's a 1991 American detective psychological thriller directed by Jonathan Demme, and it's from the novel by Thomas Harris. It stars Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins, and this really rejuvenated Hopkins' career.
Yeah.
He won an Oscar for it, and I think he only spent like 25 minutes on screen.
Something like that.
And I think that's one of the shortest Oscar-winning performances. I think the only other one was David Niven in Separate Tables. I think he spent 24 minutes on screen. Just
goes to show that how impactful his performance was as a betrayal, you know.
And it basically stars Jodie Foster as an FBI. I think she's still a probationary agent. There's a serial killer going around kidnapping young women, holding them and killing them, and she elicits the help of Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who is a serial killer who's been imprisoned, to try and help him with the case, give him some insight from a serial killer's perspective. Again, don't want to give too much away, but it's a good film. I think it won Best Director.
Yeah, it won. It's one of the rare instances where it won all five of the best Oscars to win. I do, once again, this is the thing. I know I keep going on about it, but pacing is such a important thing in filmmaking, and it is so well paced. It's so well written. You can tell they took time to write this film. The portrayal, they couldn't have picked better actors for this. You know, Anthony Hopkins he was Shakespearean trained. You can see that even from the first shot of him. You know, it's chilling. You know, him just having that glaring stare back at you from the point of view shot. You know, yeah, he definitely deserved the Oscar.
And I think in a lot of cases, authors don't always like the films. But I think Thomas Harris did actually like the film.
They did it justice, didn't they?
Yeah, definitely. So what's your next film?
My next film is Predator.
Good choice.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite films of all time. It's just all guns blazing. Directed by John McTiernan, who would then go on to direct Die Hard, written by Shane Black. It has a stacked cast of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, Shane Black himself, and Jesse Ventura among others. It is the most macho film of all time. I'd be surprised if any girls like it. There's a lot of biceps. There's a lot of swearing. Just men being men. It's got a legendary score by Alan Silvestri, which perfectly sets up the film. It's like I said once again, even though it's all guns blazing, it's very bare bones because so I don't want to give it away, but they end up in the jungle doing one mission, and there is a extraterrestrial life being that can see them, but they can't see it. Picks them off one by one, and the final man. You can probably guess who the final man is.
Again, it's that theme of like the unknown being pursued by something you can't see, and
I really do, it really is effective. It really does work because, like I said, it's a very human emotion, and you can feel it through the screen. It does get your heart racing, but it's they're being the reason why I love it is because all the men are being hunted, but then when it's the final man, like I said, you can probably guess who it is. Dutch Alan Schefren. Arnold. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's almost he goes on the hunt for it after the hunter becomes hunted. He strips down. He goes back to man's bare essentials. To survive. Because
the Predator's kind of high tech, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the only way that you can defeat him is to go low tech.
Yeah. Like I said, he goes almost Stone Age. Primal instincts. It's all well and good having these guns, but it knows better than that. It has better technology, and like I said, sometimes you do have to go back to bare necessities, and that's what I love about it. Like I said, it is a hunter becomes the huntee sort of story, and like I said, I can't give too much away, but you do have to watch it because it is it's a comedy as well as it's got everything, but it's a thriller, it's a horror movie as well. It's very violent, but it's a very macho film, and you should watch it.
It's got Kevin Peter Hall, hasn't it, as the Predator, and he also played the Sasquatch in Harry and the Hendersons.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he did, and because there are screen tests, aren't there? Originally it was Jean-Claude Van Damme wearing some kind of praying mantis.
It looks horrible, doesn't it? It would not do well if it was that.
If you do look online, you can see some of the screen tests for
Thank God they changed that, I tell you. But definitely give it a watch. It's one of the greatest action films of all time.
Yeah. Right, so my next film is Star Wars.
Yep.
The original Star Wars.
Yep.
I don't know if we have to introduce Star Wars, what it's about, but for those who don't know...
Somehow don't know.
It's a 1977 film, directed, written, produced by George Lucas. It stars Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Peter Cushing, Alec Guinness, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Peter Mayhew, and Dave Prowse.
How they got that cast at that budget, I'll never know.
I mean, it was considered a low-budget film. Lucas had only ever made two films before that, which was THX 1138, which absolutely bombed. It almost bankrupted Coppola's film production company.
An American Graffiti
after that, and so they basically gave him the film off the back of American Graffiti. And because they had I think little faith in it, that's why they didn't give him a massive budget. It was filmed at Elstree Studios and on location in northern Africa. Like
I said, there's not
a lot you can really say about it.
It obviously started off the whole Star Wars lore story.
Now, some would argue that it isn't the best film in the original trilogy. It was titled Episode 4: A New Hope, and it was always intended by Lucas to be part of a 9-film franchise, I guess.
That's why they flow so well together, you know.
And the reason I put it in there is okay. I'm sure that lots of people would say that Empire is a better film, but it's the one that started it off.
Yeah,
and it did define the whole genre.
Without this film, we would not get Empire. We'd not get Return. We'd not get the whole Star Wars lore, and
all the other films related to that, and have been based on that as well.
I mean, it was an absolute. I can't tell you how big of a smash hit it was. It had at the time it was about 750 million, which you put it in today's money is over 3 billion. So it'd be the highest grossing movie.
It was at that point the highest grossing movie of all time.
I mean, one of the main reasons why I think of this is obviously it's a brilliant film, but the 70s films of that decade were very depressing, dark. You know, there were disaster flicks. Where it is very light-hearted. It took you out of the world's problems. It took you to different planets and so on.
Yeah, because you look at films that have been, it's like gritty dramas and police crime films and like you said, disaster films, and so a lot of people describe this as science fiction. I don't.
No.
I think it's fantasy, but it's essentially a western in space with some of the Japanese overtones. Darth Vader is a samurai warrior. His clothing, everything, the lightsabers, that is very much the Japanese influence, and he is an iconic character. Probably,
to me personally, the most iconic antagonist of all time.
Well, I think he has in a lot of polls been voted the best villain in movies.
It's got a great opening scene of him just walking out to that score by John Williams. Of course, that's another thing. John Williams scores this film, and he is to us personally the greatest composer of all time, isn't he?
Yeah, and obviously groundbreaking special effects. What they were doing, nobody had ever done before, so they had to invent a lot of the techniques. There's countless documentaries on the making of it. When he first showed a rough cut to the studio executives, didn't have any of the effects in it, didn't have any of the music in it, and they thought it was just going to bomb. But when you put it all together,
it actually brought the guy to tears, didn't it?
Yeah. It's got one of my favourite pieces of music,
the Force theme, Binary Sunset.
Yeah, Binary Sunset. So like I said, it's maybe not. I mean, I would say it might be a bit controversial, but I don't think George Lucas is the best director. I don't think he's the best writer.
No,
I thought the dialogue is stilted,
hokey. Even Alec Guinness himself said that the writing was basically poor, but it was such a good story that he couldn't stop reading the pages, and that's essentially why they were able to get an Oscar-winning actor, well-known Shakespearean actor, to play Obi-Wan. That's the reason why he was in it. And I think for a lot of people as well, it's not about religion, it's not about skin colour, it's not about someone's nationality. All it is a simple story of a farm boy going off to fight a bigger oppressive force, and I think that's what a lot of people can relate with the character of Luke Skywalker. Doesn't bring in any of those themes, and it's just all around a fun film to watch, isn't it? You know,
it is definitely.
So while we're talking about Star Wars, my next film is Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, that's on my list as well.
Might as well talk about it then.
All right. Yeah. Again, I think Lucas said he had such a horrible time filming Star Wars. Everybody said he didn't really like dealing with people.
No.
So he preferred to concentrate on the special effects, and he turned the directing over to Irving Kershner, who was one of his professors at UCLA.
Yeah, and he done a better job than George Lucas could ever do. You know what I mean? But once again, there's a couple of films, and this is one of them where the sequel just builds and everything and turns it up a notch, you know.
Yeah.
And I think obviously this is a much darker film, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. Well, it's been described as the second act of a 2-act play. So anything that can happen to the protagonist does. You know, they put them in the worst possible situation they can be. Obviously, what happened to Han Solo.
Yeah.
Don't want to spoil it again.
Yeah, this is very hard because you don't want to spoil it, but...
And it's the first time that Luke and Darth Vader actually meet.
Yeah.
Iconic scene. An iconic scene where a massive secret's revealed. The cinematography during that is absolutely world class. But I think as well is it builds, like with the obviously it starts on Hoth. It builds the Star Wars lore, the Star Wars universe. You know, it can, like with A New Hope, you only see Tatooine and the Death Star, but no, it makes it feel much more like it's a universe. You know, the writing's considerably much better because obviously it was Lawrence Kasdan done it. And it also introduced another iconic Star Wars character, Master Yoda.
Yeah. And
I think that was the big problem was how they were going to do that. And they decided on obviously making a puppet, which was voiced by Frank Oz. And I think that was a big worry is how the audience were going to accept Yoda, whether they were going to laugh at it as a puppet.
Yeah.
But I think the performance by Frank Oz is such that you forget that it's a puppet and it's a real fleshed out character.
I think as well that the introduction to him is where Yoda says to Luke, "You seek Yoda," as in, okay, this isn't Yoda, and this can't be Yoda. But then he's all like playful and cheery. But then when it gets down to business, when he reveals that it is Yoda, you know what type of character he is. You have that almost have that respect for him. You know, you see him as a master.
But it's like as well. Luke obviously doesn't. You know, he's heard about Yoda, this great warrior, and he doesn't expect him
being a little frog.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about you know,
and that breaks stereotypes.
One of the lines is "Judge me by my size, do you?" Which is true.
Yeah.
You shouldn't judge people just on what they look like or their size or whatever. It's much deeper than that. So there are other themes there.
Like I said, there's not much we can really say. You do have to watch it. Like I said, for me, this is one of, if not the greatest film of all time.
Yeah, I totally agree. So moving on, is my go again?
Yep.
All right. So my next film on my penultimate is The Searchers.
I've never seen it, so you're gonna have to.
It's close. Again, you can't. There's so many films that I could have chosen, but this is just one of my favourites. Because I like westerns. That's one of my favourite genres. It's a 1956 western directed by John Ford, and it stars John Wayne. And the plot is, it's John Wayne's character. He comes back from the Civil War to his brother's farm, and while he's there, there's a raid by the Comanches who drive off the cattle. And while the men are out trying to retrieve the cattle, there's another raid, and most of his family are killed, and they kidnap his niece, later on played by Debbie Reynolds, and it's about his 8-year search to try to find his niece who's been kidnapped by the Comanches. So hence the search of the title. And right at the end of the film, when he does find her, initially she doesn't want to come back with him, and you don't know what he's going to do, whether he's going to kill her or not. And I'm not going to give the end away, so if you don't know what happens, you've got to go watch it. But again, it's beautiful. It's filmed in Monument Valley, which is, I think, one of John Ford's favourite filming locations. Beautiful scenery. There's some iconic moments in it. One of which is when he returns Debbie back to the family. He just walks, stands in the doorway in silhouette, and just disappears off into the distance. I would highly recommend watching it if you get the chance.
Yeah, I'll certainly give it a go. You know.
So moving on, is it your last film?
No, my second to last film is Michael Bay's The Rock. We really like this film, don't we? It's
again, it is complete rubbish.
Yeah, no, it is. We do like those films where it's like they're an ex-CIA or and they're up against like 50 men and they somehow come out victorious. But this one thing about this film is it's got Sean Connery in. Like I said, it stars Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, Ed Harris, and it's about a team of Marines that take the Rock, aka Alcatraz. Nicolas Cage, a bio weapons engineer in the FBI.
They've got like bioweapons, haven't they? Aimed at San Francisco.
The X gas, which is one of the most deadliest gases ever, and they said they demand money or they're going to shoot it over San Francisco. But yeah, like I said, Nicolas Cage, he
is a chemical expert in gases and things, poisonous gases and stuff, isn't he?
They get his help, and then they also get the help from the only man to ever escape from Alcatraz, which is Sean Connery, who's an SES, former SES operative. Yeah,
in the 60s, Sean Connery's character stole some secret files from the FBI, and so he was imprisoned without trial, and all evidence of his existence had been wiped.
Yeah.
And he'd been held on Alcatraz, and he was the only person to have ever successfully escaped. And the plan is to send a Navy SEAL team to free the hostages, and they ask for Sean Connery's help. But in order to help them, he says he has to be on the ground. So he ends up going in with Nicolas Cage, who's going to have to disarm the bombs. Again, don't want to give too much away, but it's one of those films that
batshit crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's really good.
Obviously, a great score by Hans Zimmer again, and don't expect realism from this film because it isn't, but it is like a really fun time, and it's a popcorn movie. You can just switch it on and have a really good time with this movie.
I mean, there's a car chase scene involving a Humvee.
Yeah.
I think it's a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And then a motorbike and a streetcar. So that kind of
that just sums it up. Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely give it a watch.
Okay, good.
So your final film?
Yeah, my final film is the 1990 crime film Goodfellas, directed by Martin Scorsese, written by Nicholas Pileggi, starring Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci. It's supposedly based on a true story.
Yep.
About a guy called Henry Hill, and it details how as a kid he got involved with the local crime family, started skipping school, spending time with them, and eventually becomes part of their group.
Yep.
And then they pull off one of the biggest, it's called the Lufthansa Heist. This is where they steal payroll going to Germany for US soldiers serving over there, and it's about infighting as well. Robert De Niro's character becomes paranoid that other people are going to get him caught, so he starts killing people who were involved in it. It's just a great film.
I mean, it is. There's millions of gangster films, but it's the standard and it's the most real, isn't it?
Yeah,
100%.
And then obviously what happens in the end is Henry's caught on drug charges.
They raid his house, don't they?
Yeah, they raid his house, find drugs, and they're given the option of turning state's evidence, which he does. He then is put in witness protection. So the start of the film and the end of the film are him in witness protection, and then he narrates the whole film throughout.
It's a very thrilling but tense film, and it does put you on the edge of your seat the whole time, But it's odd as well because it's got some very natural comedic elements, like with Joe Pesci. He obviously won the Oscar for that, didn't he?
So it's graphic as well.
Yeah,
but it is a film that I would say watch if you can.
100%, especially if you're into gangster films. It is the pinnacle of that genre of film. My last film is what I consider to be the greatest sequel of all time, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. The reason why I love this so much is once again that theme of building on the original, but it basically kicks the door off the hatches for this one. It is a totally different film to the original. The original, I love the original. It's very, you can tell it's a small budget. It's very bare bones. It's almost more of a horror film about a T-800 going after Sarah Connor, and
it's essentially about it's about a robot that's been sent back in time to kill the mother of its opponent in future. It's kind of,
it's very mind bending, but
but again, like you say, it's very dark.
Yeah.
Stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. It's a clever film because although it's futuristic, it's set in present day.
Yeah, 1984.
So that's how they can keep the budget down. But like you say, the second Terminator 2 is about a new Terminator that's sent back.
The T-1000 played by Robert Patrick
to kill John Connor.
Yeah.
And what happens is the rebels in future capture a T-800, which again played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. They reprogram it and they send that back in time to protect John Connor.
What I love about the first scene where you see both Terminators on screen is John Connor's being chased by the T-1000, which is a more updated Terminator with its liquid metal, and it's even now it's CGI, but it really does stand up to the CGI of now, doesn't it? You know, he's being chased by the T-1000 down one side of the corridor, and then the other side is the T-800, and the T-800 gets a shotgun out, and you think, oh no, they're both after him, but the T-800 says get down, and he protects John Connor from the T-1000, and you realise that, because up until that point you just think they sent both models back in time, you know, but no, you realise that the rebels sent the T-800 back to protect John Connor, and it makes it feel like a different film because you've always got that protective side, because in the first one it was just literally Sarah Connor and Carl Reese, humans against a T-800, unstoppable being, but now you've got that protective element in the T-800 against the T-1000. But it is an all-out action film, but it's so well written, it's so well paced, the dialogue is amazing.
Yeah, and the sort of relationship between the Terminator and John Connor as well.
Yeah.
John teaches the Terminator to be sort of more human, and as Sarah says herself, he's a perfect father for him because he will protect him and he'll never stop.
Because that is his one command.
That's his one mission in life is to protect John Connor. So yeah, it's very different to the original. I think the reason Arnie wanted to change it slightly was because he wanted to change his image. He didn't want to be the bad guy. He wanted to play the good guy. And obviously he went on to do, I don't know if it was before or Kindergarten Cop, I don't know if it was before or after this, Twins. So it really changed his image. He became more of a film hero than a film villain.
That's just a testament to Arnie, because he can play a bad T-800 and a good T-800 just as well as each other, you know. But like I said, it does build onto that first film. It brings in more emotion. Obviously, you can get that from the increased budget. You know, it does help a lot. But yeah, it really implemented James Cameron as a serious director in that sort of Spielberg, Scorsese type of directing.
Yeah, and it did. It was groundbreaking special effects, wasn't it? With because the T-1000 is actually made of liquid metal.
Yeah,
and so you see how it melts and how it can duplicate people.
It got the physics right about it, you know what I mean? And it takes so much computer power to do that. I really don't know how they did it, but like I said, even today it stands up to today's CGI.
Okay, well, that concludes our podcast for today, I think. Like we say, this is purely personal lists. Film. I mean, there was a lot of films that I couldn't include that I would have liked to have included. Maybe we'll do another one later on.
Yeah, could do.
Yeah, Well, thanks for listening. We're hoping to do these every couple of weeks.
And we're going to do anything and everything about films, any little ideas that we get, we're going to do a podcast about it. So,
thanks for listening, and we'll hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Bye.